The man at the front desk city was lit up like a dream, that it was late evening in Dubai, and the skyline sparkled with luxury. Towers of glass and gold pierced the clouds, while expensive cars hummed quietly along the polished streets. At the entrance of the five-star El Royale Hotel, a long line of black cars pulled in, each one dropping off men and women dressed in custom suits and glittering watches. Inside the marble lobby, staff moved fast, smiles wide, clothes crisp. Every guest was a VIP. Every gesture was part of a carefully designed show. In the middle of that dazzling crowd, a man walked in quietly, pulling a simple carry-on behind him. He wore worn-out jeans, a plain black hoodie, and old sneakers. His hair was a little messy, and he looked more like someone headed to a bus station than to a billion-dollar business summit. But that man was Keanu Reeves. He had arrived without security, without media, without even telling most of his team. Just a man checking into a hotel. To him, it wasn't unusual. He hated attention. He had always lived like that, simple, quiet, low-key. And now, despite being one of the world's most respected stars and a powerful investor in clean tech and independent film, he was still the same humble soul who once gave away most of his salary to support the crew behind the scenes. Keanu walked up to the front desk. A young man named Armin stood there, typing quickly on the computer. He didn't look up at first. He had just dealt with 3 demanding guests and 1 shouting businessman who threatened to fire him if he didn't upgrade the damn suite. "Hi," Keanu said softly, handing over his ID. "I have a reservation." Under Reeves, Armin glanced up, still distracted, then did a double take. Was that Keanu Reeves? Before he could react, another staff member, a tall man with slicked-back hair named Rohit, walked over. He was the senior shift manager, and he noticed Keanu instantly. But instead of smiling, Rohit's expression turned strange. He looked at Keanu's old hoodie, his simple bag, and something in his eyes narrowed. "Sir, do you have confirmation?" Rohit asked, stepping in front of Armin. "Yes," Keanu replied calmly. "I booked online. I also used a promotional coupon." Rohit raised an eyebrow. "A coupon, yeah, from the hotel's Green Partner program. It's supposed to give a 20% discount for guests who don't request laundry service or daily cleaning." Rohit forced a smile. "Of course, sir, very irresponsible." But as he turned to Armin, his voice lowered. "Give him the basic executive suite, nothing extra." Armin hesitated. "But sir, I know who he is," Rohit snapped. Under his breath, "He's playing poor with coupons. Let's not waste upgrades on stunts." Keanu heard every word. He said nothing. He just smiled politely and waited. After the check-in was done, Armin handed over the key card. "Room 1602, Mr. Reeves, and welcome. It's an honor." Keanu nodded, eyes kind. "Thank you, Armin." He headed toward the elevators. Rohit watched him go, then shook his head. "Imagine that," he muttered to another employee nearby. "Billionaire actor using coupons. What a joke." They laughed softly. But what none of them knew was this. The next day, in that same hotel, Keanu was set to sign a $3.8 billion global partnership between his clean energy startup and a network of Middle Eastern investors. The deal was not just business. It was a move that would shift the way green infrastructure operated in 6 countries. And Keanu had chosen El Royale Hotel specifically for this meeting because he had heard it was run by people who valued service, humility, and kindness. That night, Keanu sat in his modest suite, sipping tea he had made himself. He opened his laptop and worked quietly, preparing the final terms of the agreement. Across the city, flashy events were happening. Celebrities, champagne, red carpets. But Keanu didn't care. What mattered to him was truth, real people, genuine moments. Around midnight, there was a knock at his door. He opened it to find Armin, holding a small tray with fresh fruit and a handwritten note. I wanted to thank you, sir," Armin said nervously, "for being kind. Most guests, especially famous ones, they don't treat us like humans." Keanu took the tray. "Thank you, Armin. You didn't have to do this. Actually, I did," he said. Voice shaking. It's my last week here. My mom is sick. I'm leaving to take care of her. This hotel, it used to be different. Now, it's all about money and image. But tonight, when you looked me in the eye and said thank you, I remembered why I started this job. Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder. Your mother raised a good man. Armin looked like he might cry. He nodded, stepped back, and whispered, "Good night, sir." The next morning, the El Royale buzzed with activity. Journalists arrived. Investors gathered. Cameras were mounted on golden tripods. The staff polished every mirror and tightened every ribbon. And then, Keanu walked in. This time, not alone. He was accompanied by key partners from Japan and Germany. Men with serious faces and sharp eyes. Men who controlled vast parts of the new green grid technology market. The meeting was to be held in the Crystal Room, the hotel's pride. A massive space lined with chandeliers and velvet chairs. Everything was perfect, until it wasn't. As Keanu passed through the lobby, Rohit approached, a bright smile plastered on his face. "Mr. Reeves," he said cheerfully, "welcome again. We've prepared the space for your..." But before he could finish, Keanu looked straight into his eyes and said, in a calm, clear voice, "Cancel it." Rohit blinked. I'm sorry. Cancel the booking. Cancel the meeting. We won't be using your hotel for our signing." Gasps from nearby staff. Even the Japanese delegate turned, confused. Rohit stammered, "Mr. Reeves, is there a problem? If there was something wrong with your room, I assure you, this isn't about the room." Keanu said. He turned to his partners. "Gentlemen, we'll be moving the meeting to a different venue. I've already informed the car service. There's a small hotel on the edge of town, run by a local family. It's not as shiny, but it has heart." One of the partners nodded slowly. "Understood." Rohit was now pale. "Sir, this is a $3 billion deal." 3.8, Keanu corrected, softly. "And no deal is worth signing in a place that looks down on people who use coupons." He turned to Armin, who was quietly watching from behind the desk. "Thank you again," Keanu said. "You reminded me what real hospitality feels like." Armin bowed his head, and with that, Keanu walked out. The entire lobby froze. Some staff looked down, ashamed. Others whispered. And Rohit? He stood there, silent, the weight of $1 billion loss crashing down around him. The shift in silence. El Royale Hotel had never felt so quiet. Rohit stood frozen in the middle of the marble lobby, still gripping the folder that had held the itinerary for the $1 billion deal. The silence around him was loud, too loud. The staff avoided eye contact. Guests who had witnessed the scene whispered into their phones or watched with stunned expressions. Within minutes, the news began to travel. Not through press, not through official reports, but through people, staff who had been standing nearby, interns who had overheard, and hotel guests who quickly shared what they had seen. Keanu Reeves just canceled a multi-billion-dollar deal over a hotel coupon, but those who knew better, those who had truly listened, added the real reason: because someone disrespected a man for being humble. Meanwhile, Keanu sat in the back of a black sedan with his two business partners. The car moved quietly along the outskirts of the city, away from the luxury lights and into a part of Dubai not featured in glossy brochures. The destination, an old hotel run by a retired couple who had once hosted humanitarian workers and traveling teachers. It wasn't glamorous. There were no chandeliers or marble fountains, but it had something else. Warmth. Keanu looked out the window as the buildings changed. He thought about Rohit's face, the arrogance, the dismissiveness, but more than that, he thought about Armin's shaking hands and the small note he had left with the fruit tray. Some people shine brightest in quiet. Keanu smiled, faintly to himself. He had made the right decision. The new hotel, called Bayat Inn, stood like a forgotten gem between two shops. The owners, Mr. and Mrs. Haroon, greeted them at the door with wide smiles and sweet tea already brewing. "You are always welcome here," Mrs. Haroon said, pressing a hand to her heart. Inside, the walls were lined with old photographs of guests. From over the years, artists, writers, teachers, backpackers. The furniture was simple, The curtains hand-sewn, but every corner whispered, "You matter here." Keanu's partners looked round curiously. "It's humble," the German delegate said. "Yes," Keanu replied, "but watch how they treat people." They were served fresh dates and spiced tea before anyone even asked. When one of the assistants dropped a pen, Mrs. Haroun bent to pick it up before he could move. No one talked down, no one talked over, and in just 15 minutes, the entire tone of the meeting changed. Contracts were reviewed, signed, and finalized, not in a crystal ballroom, but around a handmade wooden table that creaked slightly when someone leaned too far. When the final signature was placed, Keanu looked at the Harouns and said, "We'll be holding the global press conference here." They looked stunned. "But sir, we don't have. I'll cover the equipment. I'll bring the cameras. All I need is your roof and your blessing, Mr." Haroun's eyes filled with tears. "You have both." Back at El Royale, things were unraveling. The head office had received word that a major deal had been pulled. And not only that, news outlets had caught wind of it. Screenshots of tweets and TikToks were flooding the internet. Keanu Reeves cancels billion-dollar deal after hotel mocks him for using a discount. Humility wins. Keanu praised for putting people before profit. The El Royale's ratings started to dip. Angry reviews appeared. Guests checked out. Early. Inside the staff room, Rohit paced nervously, while Armin sat quietly in the corner. Rohit finally turned toward him. "What did you tell him?" Armin looked up. "Nothing. I just treated him like a human." Rohit scowled. "This isn't your moment to play saint. It's not a game," Armin said. "He saw through you. And so did everyone else." That night, Armin packed his things and left the hotel for good. But before he stepped out, the housekeeping staff, the kitchen team, and even the valet crew formed a quiet line to shake his hand. "You made us proud," one of them whispered. "You reminded us we deserve better." And he did. Meanwhile, the rooftop of Bayat Inn was being transformed. Keanu's media team worked overnight, setting up lights, a simple stage, and an open-air screen for virtual audiences. When morning came, the sun rose over the city, painting everything gold. Keanu stood at the edge of the rooftop, looking out. When the cameras rolled, he stepped forward and spoke into the microphone. "Yesterday, I walked into a place where status mattered more than kindness, where humility was treated like shame. And that reminded me why this deal matters. Clean energy is not just about power. It's about people, about dignity, about changing the way we treat the world and each other." He paused. "This partnership was signed not in a golden hall, but here where people still look you in the eye and serve you from the heart." The audience, live and virtual, erupted in applause. Reporters tweeted, influencers posted quotes, and suddenly, Bayat Inn was not just a small hotel anymore. It was a symbol. Keanu's message echoed around the world. And somewhere in a quiet neighborhood, Armin sat at his mother's bedside, holding her hand. He watched the press conference on a small screen. When he saw Keanu mention him by name, Armin reminded me that real service doesn't wear a suit. It wears a soul. He wept. He wasn't forgotten. He mattered. And the world knew it now. The following week, the CEO of the hotel chain that owned El Royale released a formal apology and demoted Rohit. The hotel promised new staff training focused on empathy and human values. But Keanu didn't respond to the apology. He didn't want revenge. He wanted change, and he had already started it. Ripple effects. 3 days after the rooftop signing at Bayat Inn, the world was still buzzing. Major news channels called it the Kindness Conference. Social media flooded with clips of Keanu's speech, especially the part where he said, "Status without heart is noise." Schools shared the video with students. Influencers posted reactions. Even a few quiet critics admitted, this man didn't just talk about change. He walked away from $3.8 billion to prove it. But while the headlines praised him, Keanu stayed out of the spotlight. He had never done things for praise. That morning, he sat at a small breakfast table at Bayat Inn with Mr. and Mrs. Haroun. The food was simple, flatbread, honey, and strong black tea, but the conversation was full of laughter and old stories. "This hotel was my father's dream, Mr. Harun said, eyes shining. He built it with his hands. And for years, we hosted travelers who couldn't afford more than a cot and soup. And now you've hosted a global energy deal, Keanu said with a smile. Mrs. Harun chuckled. He always said walls don't make a place great. People do. Keanu nodded slowly. He was right. As he prepared to leave, he handed them an envelope. Mrs. Harun hesitated. What's this? A small gift, Keanu said. Not just for the stay, but to help restore and expand the inn. Maybe at a library or a garden. Inside the envelope was a certified donation for $500,000. They tried to refuse. He gently insisted, please, this place reminded me of everything good in the world. I want others to feel that too. As Keanu stepped into his car, a group of children waved from across the street. One held up a handmade sign, kindness is the real luxury. Keanu smiled and tapped the glass gently in response. Meanwhile, Armin was busy at home, not with hotel guests, but with nurses. His mother, Safia, had grown weak after months of battling her illness. Doctors had told them it was serious, but she still smiled every time Armin brought her tea or showed her old photos from his childhood. You've grown into such a man, she whispered one afternoon. I saw you on TV. The whole street saw you. Armin blushed. I didn't do much, no, my boy, she said, gripping his hand. You did everything. Just then, a knock came at the door. Armin opened it to find a delivery man holding a package, simple, brown, no return address. Inside was a note and a brand new laptop. The note read, to Armin, I heard you once dreamed of opening a tech repair shop. You reminded me that dignity doesn't wear labels. Start building. Keanu. Armin stood frozen, tears welling in his eyes. He had indeed once dreamed of starting his own business, fixing devices, teaching coding to kids in his neighborhood. But after his father died and his mother got sick, that dream faded under bills and exhaustion. Until now, he looked at his mother. She was already smiling. Start small, she whispered. Big things always do. Over the next week, a small corner of their apartment turned into a workshop. Neighbors dropped off broken radios, cracked phones, dusty laptops. Armin fixed them one by one, often refusing payment. Just spread kindness, he said. And they did. Word spread quickly. Soon, a local journalist wrote a piece titled From Hotel Clerk to Community Hero. How Armin's kindness inspired a city. Back in Los Angeles, Keanu quietly watched the article on his tablet. He showed it to his assistant, Maya, who had worked with him for years. See this, he said. That's the real story. Maya smiled. And it started because you refused to stay silent. No, Keanu replied. It started because someone showed decency in a place where people forgot how. Maya paused, then asked, what next? Keanu looked thoughtful. I want to create something permanent, not just a donation or speech, a platform. For what? For people like Armin, people who are kind in invisible places, the silent hearts of the world. And that's how Project Unseen began, a global initiative to fund, support, and celebrate workers in unnoticed roles, hotel clerks, janitors, home nurses, drivers, cleaners, not just to praise them once, but to give them education, tools, and a voice. The first step was a documentary. Keanu called it The Coupon Incident, a simple title, but filled with meaning. He flew back to Dubai a week later, this time with a small crew. He visited the El Royale Hotel, not to confront, but to film the lobby from the outside. I don't need drama, he told the director. I need truth. He filmed inside Bayat Inn, talked to the Haruns, and interviewed Armin at his workshop. The footage was raw, simple, and powerful. In one scene, Armin looked into the camera and said, I used to think kindness was weakness. Now I know, it's the strongest thing we can give. When the documentary premiered online, it went viral within hours. Viewers from every country shared their own stories. The bus driver who smiled every morning, the janitor who cleaned quietly after school events, the woman at the grocery counter who paid for a stranger's milk. People remembered, people felt, and slowly, people changed. Restaurants started offering free meals to hospital workers. Airlines gave thank you packages to ground crew. A hotel chain announced new staff equity programs and publicly credited Keanu Reeves for inspiring it. But Keanu didn't claim the praise. When asked in a rare interview why he had walked away from such a large deal, he simply said, "Because the cost of disrespect is greater than any billion-dollar deal." The Kindness Fund documentary changed more than minds, it changed lives. Within 2 weeks of its release, donations flooded into Project Unseen. Keanu had expected some support, maybe a few thousand from fans, a few emails from organizations. But what came next surprised even him. A retired teacher from Wisconsin sent $50 with a handwritten note. "I never had much, but my janitor once comforted me when I had a panic attack in the staff room. I never said thank you. This is for him." A single mother in Manila sent a message. "I washed dishes all night. Your film made me feel seen for the first time." A tech billionaire anonymously pledged $1 million, writing only, "You reminded me of my father. He was a bus driver." Keanu watched the messages come in day and night, reading each one. He barely slept. He didn't want to miss a single story. Then one morning, he called his team together. "It's time to grow. This," he said. "No more speeches. Let's build something real." And that's how the Kindness Fund was born. A global grant program under Project Unseen, focused on helping overlooked workers start their own businesses, go back to school, or just catch a breath when life got too hard. The first round of recipients was selected with great care. Among them, a parking attendant from Brazil, who dreamed of becoming a chef, a cleaner from Kenya raising 3 grandchildren after her daughter passed, a blind piano tuner from Italy who wanted to open a school for visually impaired musicians, and Armin, the hotel worker who started it all. But Armin didn't just accept the help. He asked to join the team. "I want to help pick the next recipients," he told Keanu. "I've lived this. I know what it feels like to be invisible." Keanu smiled. "Welcome to the board." Meanwhile, the press still tried to chase the original story. Reporters returned to the El Royale, hoping for new drama. But the hotel, once proud and arrogant, had changed its tone. Rohit had been transferred, and a new manager, Lila, had taken over. Someone who had grown up cleaning rooms beside her mother. She agreed to be interviewed. "What happened was wrong," Lila said honestly. "We forgot that service isn't about polish, it's about people," Mr. Reeves reminded us. "Now we're rebuilding," and they were. Staff were given better hours, mental health days, and real decision-making power. Meanwhile, back at Bayat Inn, a miracle was unfolding. Mrs. Haroon, who had always dreamed of having a small library for the neighborhood children, now stood inside a sunlit room filled with shelves, cushions, and books in over 10 languages, donated by publishers, schools, and strangers who saw her in the documentary. Children from nearby neighborhoods poured in after school, reading, laughing, sharing stories. One afternoon, Mrs. Haroon found Keanu sitting in a tiny chair, reading a picture book to a group of children. "You could have been anywhere in the world," she said. Smiling, "I am," he replied, "right here." But the most unexpected twist came from someone no one saw coming. Rohit. After being transferred to a smaller hotel in Sharjah, Rohit spent weeks drowning in bitterness. He blamed Keanu, blamed Armin, blamed the cameras, until one night, he saw the documentary. Not just clips, the full film, and something in him cracked. He watched himself on screen, sneering, dismissive. He saw Armin's eyes, heard the quiet humiliation, and then, for the first time in years, he wept. The next day, he called Keanu's team. They didn't answer right away. He sent a message. "I was wrong. I don't expect forgiveness, but if there's a way I can make things right, I'm ready." Keanu read the message in silence, then forwarded it to Armin. "Your call," he said. Armin stared at the message. His hands trembled. But then, he replied, "If you want to make things right, come meet the people you ignored. Come volunteer. No cameras, no speeches, just work." And Rohit agreed. 2 weeks later, Rohit stood beside Armin at a community event organized by Project Unseen. They handed out school supplies, cleaned a public library, and repaired old computers. No one recognized ROHIT. No one took selfies. And he didn't ask for any. As the day ended, Armin handed him a broom. You still remember how to sweep, Rohit? Smiled faintly. Guess I'm about to find out. They worked side by side until sunset. And in that simple act, no headlines, no applause, a new chapter began. Keanu watched from a distance. He didn't interfere, just placed a hand over his heart, because he knew now. What had started as a moment of ridicule had turned into a movement of redemption. The awards they never expected. Autumn arrived like a whisper, across cities and countries. Leaves turned gold, winds carried quiet change, and the world kept moving. But somewhere in the steady hum of modern life, Project Unseen kept growing. What began with a hotel coupon had become a global wave. Keanu sat in his Los Angeles office one evening, surrounded by quiet. The walls around him were lined with hand-drawn thank you letters, not from celebrities, but from janitors, factory workers, street vendors, and single parents. Every letter told a story. A woman in Nepal who received a sewing machine, a man in Detroit who repaired his father's food cart, a young boy in Cairo who now had internet access at home to attend school. And in the center of it all stood one truth: kindness isn't loud, but it moves mountains. Maya, his assistant, entered the room holding a silver envelope. Another one. She said, "Press?" Keanu asked. "No," she smiled. "This time it's real." She handed him the envelope. He opened it and read the words slowly. "You are nominated for the Global Humanity Award, not for your fame, but for the unseen impact you've made." Keanu blinked. "I didn't ask for this." "You didn't have to," Maya replied. He stared at the letter for a long moment, then folded it and placed it inside his jacket. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, in a small office lit by a single lamp, Armin sat with his mother, Safia. She had grown weaker over the past few weeks, but her spirit remained. "Look at you," she said, touching his face gently. "Speaking at conferences, helping strangers, wearing suits." Armin chuckled. "You never liked the suits. They make you look stiff," she teased. He laughed and kissed her hand. Then she added, more softly, "But your eyes haven't changed. Still kind. Still my son." He sat beside her for hours that night, holding her hand, reading stories from children who had benefited from his small coding workshop, now called Armin Tech. One boy had built his first app. One girl fixed her family's only laptop. And all of it, somehow, had begun with a quiet moment behind a hotel desk and a thank you from a stranger. 1 week later, Safia passed away in her sleep. Peaceful, with Armin holding her hand. The funeral was small, just family and neighbors. But among the attendees was a man in dark glasses and a black coat. Keanu. He didn't speak. He didn't bring cameras. He just hugged Armin and said, "She would be proud. And so am I." Armin nodded through tears. "Thank you for seeing me when no one else did." And Keanu replied, "No, thank you for reminding me why seeing matters." That winter, the Global Humanity Awards were held in Switzerland. A quiet, snowy evening, no red carpet, just purpose. Keanu arrived alone. He wore a simple suit, no designer tags, no press team. When his name was called, the room stood. He walked slowly to the stage, then paused in front of the microphone. "I don't deserve this alone," he said. "I used a hotel coupon because I believe in simplicity. I was mocked for it, and in that moment, I saw a man who treated me like a person, not a wallet." He looked into the audience. "Armin, will you join me?" Gasps filled the room. Armin, sitting in the back, stood up, unsure, overwhelmed, and slowly walked to the stage. The crowd applauded again. Keanu stepped aside and let Armin speak. "I didn't do much," Armin said softly. "I just did my job. But that day, someone saw me. Not because I was famous or important, just because I mattered." He paused, voice shaking. "And now, I want to spend the rest of my life doing the same for others." The applause that followed was not just loud, it was full of emotion. Two men on stage, one famous, one once invisible, united by kindness. After the awards, Project Unseen was flooded with new applications, partnerships, and volunteers. Companies offered to match donations. Universities invited Armin to speak about emotional intelligence in service jobs. Airlines wanted to play the documentary during flights. Schools added it to their kindness curriculum. And through it all, Keanu stayed quiet. He refused interviews. He turned down late-night shows. The focus isn't me, he told Maya. It's the movement. But even he couldn't avoid what happened next. A small hotel in Tokyo, known for training single mothers in hospitality, renamed their rooftop reading lounge the Reeves Library. Inside, on the main wall, they placed a quote from the film, "Status without heart is noise." Back at Bayat Inn, Mrs. Haroon stood inside her now busy library, helping children pick out books. One girl tugged her sleeve. "Auntie, who is Keanu Reeves?" Mrs. Haroon chuckled. "He's the reason your school now serves free breakfast, and the reason you're holding that book." The girl smiled. "Can I meet him? Maybe one day," she said. "But for now, you can be like him." How Mrs. Haroon knelt down. "See people. Be kind, even when no one's looking." The last coupon spring came early that year. The flowers bloomed faster than expected in the gardens behind Bayat Inn. Birds returned to the rooftops, and children ran through the newly painted reading room, laughing between bookshelves. The world had changed in quiet ways, and at the center of it all, the seeds planted by one simple act of humility kept growing. Keanu Reeves stood at a train station in Tokyo. No entourage, no cameras, just a light backpack slung over one shoulder, and a copy of Project Unseen's latest field report in his hand. It wasn't a movie shoot. It wasn't a press tour. It was something smaller and deeper. He had come to meet a janitor named Hiroshi. The old man had been cleaning subway stations for 30 years. Last month, one of his co-workers anonymously submitted Hiroshi's name for a kindness grant after learning he spent every Saturday teaching children how to fold origami to calm anxiety. Keanu walked up to him and bowed. Hiroshi looked surprised, but didn't pause. "Sir," he said in a soft voice, "the floor is wet." Keanu smiled. "I'm not here to get in your way. I'm here to thank you." Hiroshi paused, leaned on his mop, and replied, "For what?" "For showing the world that being good doesn't need an audience." Hiroshi chuckled. "Being kind is like breathing. Do it too loud, and you forget how natural it's supposed to be." Keanu laughed. He handed him a sealed envelope. Hiroshi opened it, revealing a kindness grant and a handwritten note. "You are not unseen." Hiroshi didn't cry. He just nodded once, then went back to mopping. And that was enough. Back in Los Angeles, Project Unseen was entering its second year. Armin had now hired 2 full-time employees and opened a community tech hub. He named it Safeport, saying, "Everyone needs a dock where they can rest and restart." At the grand opening, a familiar figure stood quietly in the back. Rohit, no longer in hotel management, no longer angry. He had taken a job as a volunteer, counselor for people transitioning from service jobs to new careers. During the ribbon cutting, Armin paused and looked at him. "You taught me something," he said. "Sometimes the people who fail us are the ones who need kindness the most." The crowd clapped. Rohit looked down, eyes wet. After the event, he walked up to Armin. "You saved me," he said softly. "No," Armin replied. "We saved each other." Meanwhile, Keanu continued his quiet mission. He visited rural schools, helped build a solar-powered bus stop in Ghana, appeared unannounced at a retirement home where a former waitress from El Royale had been living alone. He sat beside her for an hour, listening to her stories about long shifts and forgotten smiles. "Why do you do this?" she asked him, voice cracking. "Because the world only claps for the loud." He answered, "I want to clap for the quiet." Then came the email that changed everything. Again, it came from the United Nations. They had created a new recognition program, the Unseen Honors, named after Keanu's movement. The awards would recognize kindness and humanity in public service, education, healthcare, and more. Keanu tried to turn it down. They insisted. And so, one sunny morning, on a stage surrounded by workers, nurses, drivers, volunteers, Keanu was honored with the first ever Unseen Global Advocate Award. But when he took the stage, he didn't accept it for himself. He handed the award to Armin. "He's the reason I remembered what kindness looked like," he said. "He saw me when I was wearing a hoodie and using a coupon, and it turns out he was teaching the world how to be human." Armin shook his head. "We did it together." But Keanu turned to the crowd. "No matter who you are, no matter what you wear or how much you make, you are not invisible. Your kindness may be quiet, but it echoes." The room stood in silence. Then slowly, applause began. Not the loud kind, not the fast kind, but the steady kind, the kind that comes from deep respect. Months later, the world had moved on to new headlines, but one evening, a hotel clerk in the quiet town found herself helping a tired guest check in. He wore an old jacket. His hair was messy. He handed over a coupon, and the clerk smiled and said, "Thank you for choosing us." He looked up and smiled back, because kindness, once given, never truly ends. It passes from hand to hand, from moment to moment, seen or unseen. And sometimes it begins with something as simple as a man using a coupon.